All right, so hopefully, again, thanks again coming out. At this session, we're going to get into more specifically what utilities are doing when it comes to transportation electrification, as well as a little more into resiliency as well too. So we have three of us up here today. So I'll let them introduce each other as we go, but it's a good representation. Myself again from Entergy, Jay from Cleco, and then Chris also from Entergy, but our resiliency program. So what we're going to talk about today, I've dig into a little more what we're doing in Entergy when it comes to electric vehicles, kind of some of our customer programs as well too, to support the needs that you have. So again, my name's Scott Barrios. I'm Entergy's manager of transportation electrification. So like I mentioned, when we look at transportation electrification at Entergy, there's kind of three main things that we look at it in the lens of. One, it's an opportunity for us to grow the business as a utility. We want to make sure we can, look at the way we're selling electricity and grow the business through that, and primarily through fleet electrification, making public charging available, residential charging. We want to make sure we can support the customers by doing that. Two is, like I mentioned in the last presentation, we have the responsibility to prepare the grid for what's coming next. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that. First, as we grow the grid, we got to prepare the grid as well too. And the third thing is we just want to make sure customers are successful in doing this as well too. We're learning a lot from doing it ourselves with our own fleet and working with other customers, and we want to make sure we can share those learnings and make it as easy for them as possible, because this is new to all of us in some cases and complex, and we want to make sure, and at the end of the day, we're the experts when it comes to electricity, so explaining the way electricity rates, things like that work, it's really nobody better for us to do than us. So it's not the same as a gallon of gasoline fueling a vehicle when you start talking demand charges, energy charges, and all these different riders that go along an electricity bill. It's not as simple anymore as just a gallon of gas costs this amount. But one of the first things we did at Entergy was really develop our fleet solutions program. And starting off, we've been around doing electric vehicles for decades now, but it's always been very different parts of the group. I found some old pictures of back in the 50s and 60s of some initial electric vehicles that Entergy has. I think the city car was one of them. Our operating company, Entergy Mississippi, had that little triangle car. You see some old pictures like that. Going back 10 years ago, we donated a lot of charging stations to a lot of universities around in Baton Rouge and New Orleans and in Beaumont, Texas, and Jackson, Mississippi as well too, Little Rock. And so we've been kind of having a role. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, we really worked to consolidate a lot of the electric vehicle efforts and really develop a business team around it. So I was in our innovation lab, Keystring Labs, and we kind of develop the business plans. The teams need to focus and help our customers, like I said, mention those objectives there. And we're completely customer facing, and we want to make sure we support the customers in everything electric vehicles. That's our primary responsibility. So the first thing we want to look at was fleets. Like I mentioned, fleets is one of the fastest moving, more complex things that we work with a lot of our commercial and industrial customers to help them achieve. So we developed a solution, advisement, tools, digital tools, ability to install charging infrastructure for them on ways we can help relieve some of the frictions that they have. So we also give them a single point of contact. A lot of our customers who are converting their fleets, we work with the team and they have a single point of contact to work with the utility to get the engineering team out there so they don't have to ideally call the 1-800-ENTERGY number and work through it like that. So we want to make sure we can support them as much as possible in helping that. And the first thing we did too was develop a regulatory policy on the way we want to do that. So like I mentioned, in Louisiana, we have two regulators, the City Council of New Orleans for Entergy New Orleans and the Louisiana Public Service Commission. Now, what I don't have on here, since this is a Louisiana focus, we also have obviously Entergy Texas, Arkansas, and Mississippi as well too, and some similar programs up there. But, this kind of shows kind of the way we have the program set up. We have what's called a charging infrastructure rider. That's currently available to our customers in Entergy New Orleans, but it's pending with our regulator in Entergy Louisiana. But the cool thing about this allows the utility to go install the charging stations on behalf of the customer. So, and we recoup that cost as a line item on their electricity bill. So ideally, they don't have to go find a third-party vendor if they're not used to finding it. They have to work with us already to deliver the power. So we work with vendors. We have charging companies that we work with, installation vendors that we work with, EPCs, and they will go install the charging companies, the chargers for that customer. We do a discovery meeting, figure out exactly what they need, and then they operate them, and then we amortize that cost of the project on their energy bill. So they already have an energy bill, so we might as well just spread that cost out for that capital across the project. We maintain them for them as well too. We have several of these projects underway in Mississippi right now with some school districts, so it's exciting to see that come to fruition after years of getting the regulatory approval, the business plans working. So, it's available to Entergy New Orleans, but not in Louisiana yet. It's pending. And then we also have another exciting solution we developed, was called a demand charge adjustment rider. We can get into the way electricity bills work, but usually have two main components: an energy charge and a demand charge. Meaning, an energy charge is how many kilowatt hours you're provided, how much that meter's spinning, how much energy is being provided, measured in kilowatt hours. And then you have a demand charge, you measured in kilowatts. And that's basically the amount over a billing period, a month per se, of how much capacity are we making available to you. So it's going to be that highest demand that you use, and you pay so many dollars per kilowatts. And then those two items is usually how electricity bills are determined. So for EV charging, you have a very low utilization sometimes. You have high demand items such as a DC fast charger, maybe it's pulling 150 kilowatts, 300 kilowatts. If one car plugs in 1 month, you still have a demand charge for 150 kilowatts. But the energy they may use may be only 50 kilowatt hours. So your effective rate per kilowatt hour that you're going to be paying on your bill, meaning the average of the two, may be 80, 90 cents a kilowatt hour, and that's not good when you look at the math of that. Where, if you have still the same thing, the 150 kilowatts, but you have a lot of utilization, let's say one car's plugging in every day, and you have 1,500 kilowatt hours over time, your effective rate per kilowatt hour may be back down to that 12 cents, 13 cents a kilowatt hour. So what we did, and that demand charge makes up a majority of that bill. So there's ways we can limit that demand charge for EV charging. So we got that approved in New Orleans. It's pending in Louisiana. So we can limit that demand charge to make it look like there's high utilization. So we've heard from a lot of our customers who are running DC fast chargers, fleet depots, that this is very attractive for them in putting in investing in EV charging infrastructure. So for those who are doing NEVI sites in the state, this is going to be something that you're going to sign up for. Hopefully, it'll get approved by the Louisiana Public Service Commission relatively soon. Like I said, if you're putting a charger in New Orleans right now, it's ready to go. So we want our customers to use this. Of note, that's also active in Entergy, Arkansas. So if I know we have a few folks who are doing NEVI sites in Arkansas too. That's going to be something you can use up there too, and we have it pending in Entergy, Texas as well too. So, and then we also have our rebate program. Our rebate program has been around for probably 6 or 7 years now. Really focused on providing residential level 2 rebates for people charging chargers at homes. We offer $250 for that, and then it's specifically in Entergy New Orleans. We revamped the program last October, that we offer up to $1,000 for commercial level 2 chargers, as well as up to $12,500 for a DC fast charger. I have to look at the numbers again, but $12,500 for that. But also the cool thing about this, if that level 2 charger is in a disadvantaged community identified on the Justice 40, the census maps, we'll actually throw in another $1,500 for that. So if you're putting a level 2 charger in a disadvantaged community in New Orleans, we'll pay up to $2,500 per port for that charger as well too. Because we worked with the city council, and we want to make sure we can support more EV charging stations in the city. And then one interesting thing we also have in New Orleans as well too is a residential demand response program, where we incentivize people charging at their house to charge off-peak times. So we do that through monitoring the advanced meter infrastructure. we work with a partner to do that, and we pay people $7 a month as long as they start charging after 10, if they charge between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So it's only available in Entergy New Orleans again right now. As soon as you cross the parish line, not available. But one of the other things, so I see people taking pictures of this. This is a good slide. We want to make sure we clearly spell out the way you get service from Entergy if you're doing an EV project. So if you're working with a customer, you are a customer, charging service provider, and people have questions on how this process works, how to work with the utility, we want to make sure we can provide them a clear line on how to do that, from getting the account set up, getting engineering on site, to developing the construction plans, any type of payments that are required, to getting billing setting up and finalizing that process there. We want to make sure we make that as streamlined as possible for our customers going with EVs as well too. We also developed some new digital tools, like I mentioned. We launched a website for our e-mobility solutions, emobility.energy.com. Take a look at it on your smartphones. I think it looks great on mobile. Our team developed this, but it has a total cost of ownership calculator for fleets, for passenger vehicles as well too. We worked with a company called Zappy Ride under JD Power and Associates. They were just recently acquired by them. There's a lot of good data coming into that. It's pulling APIs for different vehicle types, charger types, things like this. So you can really do some good estimations on looking at the total cost of ownership. And it's based on our rates too, not kind of a national average. And we also, so you'll see some emissions profiles in there too, based on our generation, our electricity generation profile as well too. So there's some take a look at it. Highly recommend using it and sharing it with anyone who's maybe looking to electrify in our area. And then the kind of last thing I want to kind of brag about here is, our public charging program in Louisiana. We own and operate a few public chargers as well too. We have some DC fast chargers in Mississippi and Arkansas, and then we operate a network of 30 charging stations over 25 sites over the city of New Orleans. This is in partnership with ChargePoint and the city of New Orleans as well too. The city of New Orleans gave us access to their property, and we put the charging stations there. And the way we looked at this, where they went, is we did a social pinpoint. We got community input on where the chargers would go. We went to the city council to make sure we had good, equitable spread across all the different city council districts and had community input on where we should put them. But these charging stations are, all they're up and running. They're being used beyond our wildest imaginations. Pretty much they're used nonstop. We average over the 30 stations about 140 sessions daily. Different drivers. They're pretty much the number one complaint we have is people need to move their cars and allow other people to charge, because they're free to the use of the public right now. That's not going to always be the case, but we're very happy with this program, the way it's running. So. If you're in New Orleans, you need a place to charge. This is a great place, because before we put those in, the charging options in New Orleans were very slim, surprisingly. It's only one DC fast charger in the city, and it's a Tesla one. So there's no Tesla non-DC fast chargers in the city of New Orleans, but now we have a good, abundant network of level 2 chargers spread out all across the city that people are using. So with that, that's all I have. We'll save questions to the end. We'll come back to that, but I'll turn it over to Jay from Cleco. You go. Down arrows there.
All right, thank you, Scott. All right, so you can tell from the picture that was up on the screens previously that I'm not Richie Biedenharn. I'm not as tall, I'm not as skinny, and I don't know as much about this stuff as he does. So I wish I could tell you that I was an improvement, but I'm not. One thing I can tell you is that I'm getting a lot more sleep than Richie is. And you might say, well, that's weird. How do you know that? He just had a newborn, or his wife had a newborn baby. So that's why he wasn't able to join us today. He's taking care of her. So we wish him and his wife, his family, his daughter, the very best. So I'm filling in for Richie today. A lot like Scott's presentation, I'll just kind of go over a general overview of Cleco, kind of what we're doing in the EV space, some of the incentives and offerings that we have. just as a general overview, Cleco, we are an investor-owned utility. Our corporate headquarters is in Pineville, Louisiana. If you look at our map, you say, man, that's a lot of territory. And then you compare that to how many megawatts we have, which is only 3,000. And we saw a map of Entergy a while ago. We kind of fill in the gaps nicely. But one thing that I would say is we have a very rural customer segment. So if you look, the dark navy on the right of that slide, that New Orleans region, that's our North Shore region. That's the most populated region that we serve. It's also where we're seeing the most traction when it comes to electrification and EV opportunities. Again, in our other regions, it's a lot more rural. The infrastructure's not there yet. A lot more range anxiety, less adoption. So all of those things we've taken into consideration in looking at ways to incentivize and grow that interest. We have about 12,000 miles of distribution lines, 1,300 miles of transmission lines, and we serve about 290,000 customers. So just to kick us off with just a discussion around renewable energy, Cleco does have ESG goals and plans. Our owners had actually come to us a couple of years ago and said, hey, we want you to be net zero carbon by 2050. And we want a plan, and I know this because I worked on it, and they said, we want a strategy and a plan to get to net zero carbon by 2050. I had to bite my tongue from laughing because that's a long time between now and 2050, right? And to have a dialed-in strategy, knowing exactly what technologies we're going to use to achieve net zero carbon in 2050, there's just a lot of technologies that are still under development. So I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but we are very serious about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We have preliminary goals to reduce that by 60% in 2030. A lot of that's going to be retirement of fossil fuel units with the additions of solar, green energy. So we do have a 240 megawatt solar project that we are looking at installing at our former Dole Hills power station up in Mansfield, Louisiana. And so that was a lignite unit that was retired. The infrastructure is still there, so we would like to utilize that infrastructure, build the solar up there. And so, it utilizes the existing transmission distribution infrastructure. But, we looked at this, a lot of our customers, commercial and industrial customers, are coming to Cleco asking for solar option. Even at a premium, they're willing to pay a premium. And I believe that it's all because it's just investor-led. There's investors out there that want to invest capital, but they want to know that companies have a sound ESG, net carbon zero plans, environmental. So a lot of what's driving that interest is driven by, what I would consider, investors and owners. And we're seeing a lot of customers come to us wanting the green energy, from other states, even other countries. So Louisiana, does have affordable utility rates as compared to the national average. So it is attractive for those customers. If we can add some type of green energy component, it would be even more attractive for those customers. We are looking at an RFP where we're going out and we're asking for another companies if there's opportunities for another 500 megawatts of renewable power and 150 megawatts of battery storage. And so kind of leads us into the Cleco Green Tariff Initiative. So we're actually actively going out and talking to our commercial and industrial customers about their interest in green energy. And I think with the 240 megawatts that we plan to have at Dole Hills, we've generated enough interest with our customers that they will use all 240 megawatts of that green energy for that green tariff. And again, it's a bit of a premium, and we don't know exactly how that structure is going to look, through a PPA or a virtual PPA. And it's going to require our LPSC, Louisiana Public Service Commission approval, but we are targeting that for 2027. So we've seen a lot of interest there. Again, just proof that our companies are looking for a green solution. So just like Entergy, Cleco has an EV incentive program. We have a commercial incentive, residential incentives. All that's included on our website. I won't read all of this, but basically for commercial, it's up to $3,500 for a DC fast charger. Level 2 chargers, $1,000, and then on our residential incentive, it's $250 for our residential customers. One of the things that we're just looking at rolling out, we're kind of new to this, and we just completed our first fleet assessment for a customer in our North Shore region, and we're really excited about this as a fleet assessment. So I think Scott, was talking about how these industries, these fleets, they're still very much interested in electrifying their internal combustion engine vehicles or ICE vehicles. So what this allows us to do is we will go in, we will sit down with the customer, and we'll perform a comprehensive assessment. We'll do total cost of ownership, financial models. We'll compare EVs versus existing equipment. And this isn't just, vehicles. It could be forklift, material handling equipment, off-road equipment, things like that. So it's been very interesting. We're proud to have one of those assessments behind us. We don't know if it's going to, lead to anything, but we certainly hope so. And this customer particularly, we were looking at the potential of using a Class 8 vehicle, like a bigger truck. So that's one thing that we offer. And then just EV charging projects. We're just really, to Scott's point, we're just really encourage everyone that's interested to connect with your utility. It could require significant infrastructure upgrades for certain areas. So the sooner you partner with your utility, the better off you are, the more that we can help plan together, assist you in your needs and getting infrastructure up and running if that's in your business. We do have some long lead times. We are getting better at that with inventory. But again, the more time you give us ahead of time, the better off we are. Next slide is the charging with the electric bill. So Scott talked a little bit about this and how we use these EV charging riders to benefit the customer. And you talked about demand, energy. And when that demand is real high, but you don't have the energy, your load factor is going to be lower. It's going to it's not going to align well. So what we've done is we put this rider in. It kind of flattens out that rate, and it allows the electric vehicle charging company to have a lower rate, especially when you're starting out. And you have a lot of demand where you're charging cars, but over the month you might not be charging as much. That energy is not there. So again, making it more affordable to install those chargers up front. And then last slide, I just want to talk about just best practices for fleet EV. It's engage your utility early in the process. Just understand our driving requirements and design charging that fits the needs. And then I'm not going to read through all of these, but place drivers into EVs. Don't place drivers into EVs without training. We've seen that kind of backfire as far as acceptance. And then, spec out everything. Ultra fast charger. Don't spec out ultra fast DC charging because it's less stressful to think about. And one thing I will say too is we've had a lot of opportunities to get involved with helping customers with grant writing. We just recently were successful in helping Rapides Parish School Board obtain 14 electric buses. With that, I'm going to conclude. Appreciate the opportunity, and I'll be around for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity this morning for me to speak on behalf of Entergy and our Power 3 team. I've been with Entergy for about 24 years. My primary role now over the last 3 years has been working to stand up this offering across our 4-state territory. So we currently do have regulatory approval. As Scott had mentioned before, Entergy is a regulated utility across our 4-state territory. We do have regulatory approval for this program in our Louisiana footprint, as well as our Mississippi footprint, and are seeking regulatory approval in Arkansas and Texas. And I'll give some more details on where those filings stand later in the deck here. But as Scott had mentioned before and did a good job outlining, we have, and I have seen trend here as of late of our customers being much more dependent on electricity than ever before. I think we're at an all-time high now, I could say, with the utility industry as a whole, with customers relying on electricity, needing that power to be there when they need it for all things that runs our societies today. That dependency is going to keep increasing, and we know that we're going to have to keep increasing our generation capacity and our infrastructure capacity to keep up with that. So Power Through is a way for us to do two things. It's a way for us to, as a utility, to add more generation capacity into our system in the form of distributed generators, as opposed to installing and constructing a large-scale generator as we traditionally do at one central location. We can spread out that investment over a number of smaller generators that are located at our customer's premise and interconnected into our distribution system, which is closer to the customer. So we're bringing generation capacity closer to our customers. And those same generators can provide a resiliency service for customers that need it. So critical infrastructure customers, such as grocery stores, medical facilities, EV fleet systems, or customers that have EV fleets that will require that power to be there when stuff happens to our system, could be opportunities for this offering. So traditionally, as a utility, next to safety, reliability is always top of mind, right? Keeping the lights on for our customers. We have a lot of experience due to our geography of restoring power after major weather events in our 4-state territory, not just from summer storms, but in our northern regions, ice storms are very common as well. So we have a lot of experience responding to outages, responding to those instances that happen. We do a very good job of maintaining our system and continuing to make investments in our system. As Scott had mentioned before, our new resiliency file in Louisiana is a good example of that. But stuff is going to happen, right? Major storms are going to keep popping up. There are going to continue to be interruptions to our service. So our customers our commercial and industrial customers do rely on backup generation quite a bit. A lot of our commercial customers already have that installed. They are usually in a form of diesel generators because it is a cheaper option for customers to go into. That may not be the most emission-friendly option in some cases. So our offering that we are providing for Power Through is only involving natural gas generators, which can be cleaner and provides a more consistent flow of fuel for those systems as well. The Power Through model is we're looking for customers to partner with that have that resiliency need for that power to be there when they need it, when those interruptions to our service do occur to our customers. And the model for the offering involves Entergy owning, operating, and maintaining that generator. So as mentioned before, these are small utility generating stations that we are building. We are partnering with OEM generator vendors. They're already out there. We are not reinventing the wheel in terms of technology with our vendor partners. So we are utilizing internal combustion engine, natural gas-fired generators with OEM brands such as Caterpillar, Cummins, Generac, and other microgrid operators such as Enchanted Rock and Power Secure as some of our partners that we are working with to stand up this offering and develop those solutions to fit each individual customer's needs for the installs. So Entergy owns, operates, maintains, and fuels the generator. The generator is interconnected at our customer's premise. And for our host customers where we're staging these generators and locating these generators at, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a full facility backup generator for that customer. When the lights go out, there is an automatic transfer to the generator, just as you'd expect a backup generator to operate for that customer. If you were running your business and needed a backup generator, that's how the system will react. When that host customer is not using a generator, then Entergy has the ability to remotely operate that generator for utility support. So for those peak conditions in our summertime or winter peak loading conditions, we can remotely operate these generators to supplement the grid, to add that generation capacity into our system. So very simple one-line diagram here. Just to illustrate that point. Again, we're not reinventing technology in terms of generators and electrical equipment to accomplish these installations. One thing that is unique with our offering is where we're placing the generator in terms of how we're interconnecting it into the system. Traditionally, backup generators are always behind the meter. It's customer-owned assets that are located behind the revenue metering on the customer side of the electrical system. With these systems being utility-owned and maintained, we want that interconnection to be in front of the meter. So that is unique with our offering. It's a utility-owned asset again. We are interconnecting these generators through an automatic transfer switch in front of the metering. What that allows for is our revenue metering to capture all consumption that the customer is using at any given time. So it looks from a metering standpoint as if the customer is always connected to the grid. Even if they're islanded from the utility during an outage situation and on generator power, we're still capturing that demand for that individual customer and billing them on their current rate. So there's no difference to a customer's rate in terms of usage of electricity for participating in the program. For that, we are able to absorb the cost of the fuel. So there's no direct cost to the host customer for the natural gas. We install a separate gas meter with the local gas provider at each one of these sites and handle that arrangement directly with that local provider between Entergy and the local gas provider. We also have telemetry on each one of these sites, meaning we have a device through cellular connection, through redundant cellular connections, to maintain constant visibility to these assets in the field. We need that to be able to remotely operate the units, but we also have that in place to have a 24/7 monitoring of these units as well. So that's an added benefit in terms of the service to the customer, is being able to have manned personnel at 24/7, be able to monitor these units, to stay in front of the maintenance curve on these units. If there's anything that appears out of the ordinary during operations, we can dispatch service personnel to maintain right away. And plus, we are running these units up to about 500 hours a year for utility support. That's good for engines. A lot of times you'll hear customers that have their own backup generators, when they need it to run and they start putting load on it following an outage event, something breaks and they're down with their generator. We'll be running these units. Engines like to run. we'll be running them more throughout the year for utility support under load, which is better for the overall health of the engine and more assuring that the generator will be able to run when that host customer needs it to respond to the outage. So back to the regulatory status of things, stealing one of the maps that Scott used earlier with our 4-state footprint here. So we are fully approved in our Entergy Louisiana footprint for the offering. We were approved at the very end of 2022. Last year, our first full year of commercialization, we did secure about 16 megawatts of generating capacity through various customers in our Louisiana footprint. We have been focusing on community resiliency type customers. So that customer mix was grocery stores, medical facilities, assisted living facilities has been our focus. We do have a lot of interest from our industrial customer base as well. I failed to mention before, but this offering is not available for residential customers as of late. Our innovation team is currently looking at ways to do something like this to satisfy that need for our residential customers. But for right now, any commercial or industrial customer that needs a generator between 100 kW up to 10 megawatts in size is eligible for the program. So that's been our experience there in Louisiana. We have a very healthy backlog of customers that we're continuing to work with and engage with on the offering. We are seeing an uptick in some of our fleet operators that are looking at fleet electrification on this option as well, because they want to be assured, for those fleet vehicles that if they are relying on those vehicles during all times, they need to be able to power those units even when there's interruptions to their service, to the electric service, or to the grid, I should say. So within Louisiana, we are approved. As Scott had mentioned multiple times, we have a separate regulatory body in the city of New Orleans. We do not currently have a program on the docket yet or on the table yet for Entergy New Orleans. But for Entergy Louisiana, we are approved. Entergy Mississippi was approved at the very beginning of this year. So we are fully approved for the same commercial framework there. And by the end of this year, we anticipate being approved in both Arkansas and Texas. So that will round out our 4-state availability for the offering within those areas. And with that, I will wrap up and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.